You can go weeks, even years, believing you understand someone. You pass them in the halls. You hear their name. You make your judgment. Some people don't need to speak for others to form an opinion. They just exist, and the room reshapes around them. Zayden Chase had that effect. The shoes. The watch. The car that dropped him off. The way teachers smiled too politely. The way students looked, then looked away. He never demanded attention. He didn't need to. You saw him once, and you already had your answer. Rich, distant, untouchable. But answers can be lazy. There's something about silence, real silence, that doesn't let you lie to yourself for long. And there's something about kneeling beside someone so small, so still, that forces you to face what you've avoided. That moment. It didn't happen during a celebration, or in front of a crowd, or with any cameras on. No spotlight. No applause. Just two people. On the ground. Picking up the pieces. Most of us never notice what changes someone. We think it's something loud. Something obvious. But this started with a broken box of crayons. And the boy no one expected to stop. He arrived in silence. The kind of silence people notice more than noise. The car, a black SUV with chrome edges that looked like it cost more than some families made in a month, rolled up to the curb. The door opened before the engine stopped. Zayden Chase stepped out like he'd done it 1,000 times. Pressed collar, shoes that never saw dirt, sleeves perfectly creased. He didn't look around. He didn't need to. Eyes always found him. And yet, he looked utterly alone. Students turned toward him without realizing they had. A few straightened up, adjusted their bags, fixed their posture. Not because he asked them to, because something about Zayden made people second-guess themselves. Teachers nodded politely as he passed, offering faint smiles with no warmth behind them. He didn't return them. He never did. His pace didn't change. He moved like the hallway belonged to him, like it had been built for him. Every morning, just past the second stairwell, he stopped. On the wall was a glass case lined with trophies, plaques, awards, all of them polished to reflect every light overhead. Near the center, a bronze plate. Top achievers, legacy leaders. His name was there already, etched neatly beneath his older brothers. Same last name, same reputation to protect, same expectations to outdo. He didn't smile at it. He didn't linger because he liked it. He paused because it reminded him. He wasn't just seen, he was expected. And being expected came with pressure no one ever admitted out loud. Zayden moved on. He walked past clusters of students without ever touching them, without ever speaking. They parted for him anyway. He never asked for space. He just never allowed people to take it. But underneath the surface, beneath the spotless uniform and the practiced stillness, was something hollow. He wasn't lonely. He didn't even believe in loneliness. That would mean needing someone, wanting connection. Zayden didn't want connection. He wanted credit. He wanted to be admired, talked about, remembered, but only in public, where it counted. And the truth was, people respected the idea of Zayden, but not the person, because no one actually knew the person. Inside the classroom, it got worse. Group assignments bored him. Collaboration felt like weakness in disguise. He did his part alone, or didn't do it at all. And that's when it happened. One afternoon, during a dull project about circuits, something he already understood, something he decided was beneath him, he reached behind the classroom projector and twisted a cable until it popped loose. It didn't make a scene. It didn't explode. It just died. The screen went black, and with it, the entire group froze. No one accused him. No one needed to. They just went quiet. The kind of quiet that always followed Zayden around but never felt peaceful. The teacher asked him to stay after class. He didn't flinch. He expected the usual, a half-hearted warning, maybe a note home. At most, a suspension, which he could skip without consequence. Instead, he was handed a form. One line in bold letters. Assigned duty, after-school janitorial service. 1 week minimum. No speech. No discussion. No chance to argue. He looked at the paper, then at the principal, then back at the paper, and something in him shifted. Not fear, not anger, but disbelief. Because this wasn't punishment in the way he'd learned to expect it. It wasn't public. It wasn't loud. There were no eyes watching. No stage to reclaim control from. This was quiet. Low. Invisible. The kind of consequence no one would care about. Except him. And for someone who lived off visibility, nothing cut deeper than being made irrelevant. But it wasn't over. Because the worst part of all was who he'd be cleaning with, and the version of himself he'd meet in the process. The first day felt like exile. While the rest of the building emptied into carpools and crowded buses, Zayden stood alone near the back stairwell, holding a mop that looked like it had survived a decade of school years. The handle had splinters. The wheels on the bucket screeched every time it moved. The air smelled like bleach and something older. Waiting beside him was Mr. Hector. Tall, quiet, with slow, deliberate movements. He looked like someone who had learned how to be invisible in a place full of noise. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer sympathy. He simply handed Zayden a rag and pointed toward the lockers. Zayden didn't protest, but he didn't cooperate either. He dragged the mop like a prop, tossed paper towels instead of folding them, spent more time leaning against the wall than working. When told to sweep, he pushed the broom in lazy half circles. When asked to wipe the windows, he smeared them worse. He cracked jokes under his breath about how he'd donate a robot to do this for him, or how cleaning floors should come with hazard pay. No one laughed. No one responded. And that silence, louder than any lecture, chipped at him. Then came Luca. At first, Zayden thought the boy was just another student who'd gotten lost. Small frame, oversized hoodie, sneakers with mismatched laces. But there was something different. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't speak. He walked the same path 3 times in a row, then sat quietly in the janitor's closet, surrounded by stacks of labeled bins and colored markers. And when Luca mimicked the school bell, Zayden mimicked it back. Same tone, same rhythm. They both laughed, quiet, cautious, like it might break if they made it too loud. That afternoon, the tasks felt different. Not easier, just less pointless. He mopped without being asked, wiped surfaces before they streaked, fixed the crooked bulletin board by the teacher's lounge without telling anyone. And people noticed, but didn't say much. A girl in his class passed him a folded paper towel without a word. One teacher gave him a pat on the back in the hallway. Nothing dramatic, just a passing touch that lingered longer than usual. No one called him a hero. No one gave him a speech. But the eyes that used to slide past him were now meeting his. Quiet acknowledgments, unspoken shifts. For the first time, he wasn't chasing attention. And somehow, that made him feel seen. Zayden hadn't expected anything. He showed up like he always did that week. Quiet, hoodie pulled low, sleeves rolled up, hands already raw from bleach and floor wax. He clocked in with the kind of calm that didn't need reminding. He didn't ask questions. He didn't check his phone. He just moved, like he belonged to the space now, like it needed him. But that day, Mr. Hector wasn't waiting near the mop bucket. Instead, a folded note sat on the utility table. Just a simple line scribbled in pen. Report to the auditorium. No explanation. No instructions. Just that. He hesitated, because this wasn't routine. and Zayden had grown to understand the comfort of pattern. Still, he wiped his hands on the inside of his shirt and made his way across the building. The closer he got, the more aware he became of the sounds he usually tuned out. The MIC tests, the rustling programs, the buzz of a packed room waiting for something to begin. He wasn't used to being part of an audience, let alone walking toward a stage. Inside, the entire school sat facing forward. Bleachers full, teachers flanking the aisles. A faint spotlight warmed the wooden stage where the principal stood, holding a slip of paper with the kind of stillness that demanded attention without asking for it. And then, the announcement. A new tradition, a new award. But this time, it wasn't about grades. Not sports. Not club presidents or star students. It was about something smaller. Something that didn't live on walls or trophy cases. Something that happened in the quiet corners of the school most people never saw. And then came the name. Zayden Chase. For a second, the room didn't react. No claps. No whispers. Just silence. One that felt too full, too aware. And then came the sound of soft footsteps. Luca wore large earmuffs, the kind you'd see on airport runways. He held a laminated schedule in his hand and followed it like it was sacred. His hands moved in patterns, counting, sorting, tapping. A world of his own. Zayden stared for a moment, then shrugged him off. But the boy kept showing up. Every afternoon, same spot, same rhythm. He didn't interrupt. He didn't explain himself. But he was always there, drawing order from chaos while Zayden did the opposite. And then one day, their paths crossed. Zayden was half-heartedly sweeping the main hall, the broom barely touching the ground. Luca stepped forward, holding a smaller brush with green tape on the handle. Without a word, he began sweeping beside him, mirroring his movements exactly, like a quiet shadow. Zayden stopped, watched, and then, without thinking, knocked the broom from Luca's hands. It wasn't violent, just frustrated, just tired, just enough to send the brush clattering against the lockers. Luca froze. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply let his hands drop to his sides and walked away, back to the closet, where he sat in the dark and stacked plastic blocks without looking up. Zayden didn't follow. He didn't say sorry. But something in him stayed behind, stuck to the hallway tiles like the dust he refused to sweep. Later that evening, while wiping a whiteboard, he overheard Mr. Hector's voice. Low, steady, without anger. You don't have to like my son, but he understands more than most people ever will. No threat, no warning, just truth. Zayden didn't respond, but for the first time since he'd been assigned this so-called punishment, he stopped pretending it didn't affect him, because he hadn't expected the silence to feel so loud. He hadn't expected that quiet little boy to matter. He hadn't expected anything to matter at all. And that, more than the labor, more than the humiliation, was what unsettled him the most. By the fourth day, the routine had settled in. Zayden showed up, mopped half-heartedly, ignored instructions, and waited for the clock to save him. But today, something was off. The air felt heavier. The hallway lights flickered like they were holding their breath. And then he saw it. Just past a row of lockers, scattered notebooks, cracked crayon boxes, a lunchbox turned upside down. In the middle of the mess sat Luca, shoulders curled, eyes locked to the floor, tiny fingers curled into his hoodie sleeves. No janitor's cart. No Mr. Hector in sight. Zayden froze. Every instinct told him to keep walking. This wasn't his business. Someone else would clean it up. But his feet didn't move. And that silence, the same silence he used to hide in, was different now. It wasn't peaceful. It felt like abandonment. He knelt, slowly, carefully. No one else around. No audience. No reward. Just a boy who'd spent 4 afternoons trying to be near him, now sitting in pieces. Zayden picked up a broken green crayon first, then a blue, then the lid of the box. He didn't know how Luca liked things, but he remembered the way the markers were grouped, color, then size. So he followed that. One by one, he put everything back the way it must have been before. Luca didn't speak, but he stopped shaking. Zayden reached for the paper towels tucked in his belt and gently handed one over. Luca didn't grab it. He just looked at him, eyes wide, full of something hard to name. And for once, Zayden didn't say anything either, because whatever words he thought might work, none of them felt honest. Mr. Hector stood at the end of the hallway, barely visible in the dim light. He didn't step in. He didn't interrupt. He just watched, arms folded, eyes unreadable, and gave a single, quiet nod. That moment didn't erase everything. It didn't turn Zayden into someone else. But something had started, and this time, he wasn't trying to stop it. The next morning, Zayden was early. No one told him to be. The hallways were still dark, classrooms unopened, and janitorial carts untouched. But there he was, leaning against the closet door, waiting. Luca arrived 5 minutes later, his earmuffs on, laminated schedule in hand. He looked up, and this time, he didn't keep his distance. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. Zayden held open a crate of unsorted supplies. Luca took it, sat cross-legged on the floor, and began arranging. Colors, shapes, labels. His hands moved with purpose. Zayden followed his lead. He didn't ask questions. He didn't mock. He just mirrored. From stage right, Luca emerged, slow and careful, as always. Earmuffs slightly crooked, color drawing clutched between his fingers. A thin sheet of printer paper, folded at the edge, edges smudged from being held too tightly. He walked with intention, eyes locked forward. No one dared interrupt. Zayden didn't move at first, but when Lucas stopped at center stage, arm outstretched, something inside him shifted. He stepped forward, one foot in front of the other. No hesitation, no posture to protect, just motion, real, grounded, without armor. When he reached Luca, he didn't look at the audience. He looked only at the paper. 2 stick figures, side by side. One wearing earmuffs. One with a sleek black hoodie. Both holding brooms. A memory sketched in crayon. Zayden lowered himself, not because anyone asked, but because it felt right. And he stayed there, still, connected, present. In that moment, there was no applause, no soundtrack, no noise, only the soft rustle of paper, the creak of wooden stage boards, the sound of a room breathing in unison, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. 4 more true stories that stay with you, the kind that says everything. Because in a school filled with trophies and speeches, this was something else entirely. This was recognition without a spotlight, a transformation that no one predicted, but everyone felt. And in that quiet, Zayden understood something deeper than any lesson printed in a textbook. Change doesn't announce itself. It shows up in what you choose to carry, in who you choose to see, and how you choose to stay. Zayden still arrived in silence. Backseat of a black SUV, door opened by someone paid to wait. Same backpack, same jacket, same perfect shoes stepping out into the morning light. But something had shifted. He walked the hallways without his usual armor, Still quiet, still distant, but no longer cold. His steps weren't sharp anymore. They were steady, measured, present. Where students used to turn away, now they glanced toward him. A subtle nod, a quick meeting of eyes. No words exchanged, but something unspoken passed between them. And he didn't crave the spotlight anymore. He let it pass him by without flinching. Every lunch break, without fail, he made his way to the narrow, windowless room most people didn't know existed. A supply closet tucked between two stairwells. No fanfare, no invitation. Inside, the world moved slower. Crane boxes waited to be labeled, picture books to be sorted, pencil cups misaligned. And in the center of it all, Luca, quiet, focused, already working. Zayden would lower himself to the floor, knees against cool tile, and pick up where he left off. No talking, no instructions, just the rhythm of order, the comfort of repetition. Sometimes, Luca mimicked the school announcements under his breath, and Zayden would time his breathing to the beat of the intercom chime. It was their version of conversation. There were no cameras, no trophies, no witnesses, just two people, one who had been invisible, and one who had finally chosen to see. And that choice, it changed everything. Because respect, he'd learned, wasn't something loud. It wasn't born in applause or envy or recognition. It was built in the smallest moments, in staying when you could leave, in listening when there was nothing to gain, in doing something kind, not because someone is watching, but because someone needs it. He once believed being important meant having your name on a building. Now, he understood the truth. That impact can be quiet. That connection is built in silence. And that the best kind of recognition isn't given. It's earned when nobody's keeping score. The hallway outside buzzed with the usual energy. Footsteps, laughter, lockers clanging shut. But inside that room, there was only stillness. Luca placed one final crayon box onto the shelf. Lined it up just right. Zayden did the same beside him. No ceremony. No fanfare. Just care. Two hands working side by side, perfectly in sync. The same way it began. Have you ever been seen for who you really are? Like, share, subscribe. For more true stories that stay with you.